Hey, this is CJ Miller. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm in my kitchen. My apartment is in downtown Shreveport. It's across the river from beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana. And come check us out. We'd love to have you. So this is something that I've done, and so it's called a cheeseburger pie. And basically, here's the recipe. This one is about I want to say about 3 pounds. 3 pounds of hamburger meat. About and I kind of decreased the ratio on some of these other recipes from the original because it was started out being like a pound of the hamburger meat, and I didn't want to triple the amount of fluid ingredients. So what I did was to look at the original recipe, and instead of even though I tripled the amount of hamburger meat, I only doubled the amount of the wet recipes. You know, the ingredients that would go into the wet part, the pourable crust, because I didn't want. If you want to kind of with some experience in baking, you kind of figure out what you want to do there. In various baking terms, when you want to increase the size of your baking, the more you double or the more you increase, sometimes you leave a little bit of that fluidity out. Uh, and a lot of it, especially in baking, has to do with the oil contents that you're dealing with, and how much wet ingredients would depend upon uh, how much grease you're gonna from a meat ingredient like this, how or even from fruit or whatever, a dried fruit or a raw fruit, how much moisture is going to be yielded from that in the cooking process would help you figure out how much fluid you're going to add. So anyway, yeah. So this was 3 pounds of hamburger meat, browned with one medium-sized onion chopped, fair amount of to taste of um, pepper. I did not use salt. And the reason why is because I'm using in the dry ingredients, we're going to come to right now, actually. So once that was done, I set that aside. And then I used 2 eggs, 1 cup of uh, all purpose or self rising flour. I think this was an all purpose flour that I had, but I added to that, I added baking powder. And the baking powder that I added was probably about a tablespoon and a half. I kind of eyeballed it, and that's why I didn't add salt, because when you use either baking powder or self-rising flour, you're going to get salt. That's part of that process. But anyway, so in this boiler so far, we got 2 eggs, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, uh, a tablespoon and a half, yeah, of baking powder, and kind of whisk together. What I did was I did not cook this, but I took the pot and I put it on the burner that was cooling from the hamburger meat. So there's a little bit of warmth, but I kind of whisked it and came up to kind of the thick batter that I wanted it to. Then I shredded about a pound and a half of this Yarlsboro cheese. And what I did, and I cooked probably about half a pound of bacon. Broke up half the pound of bacon. Some of it's in little bits, and some of it's in bigger bits to make some of the, you know, uh, shapes that we're seeing poking through the cheesy crust here. So you layer uh, the meat and the cheese, and then the meat and the cheese, and you layer it. And then when you get all done, you pour your wet mixture over it, and all that kind of drains and settles to the bottom, and then you add your cheese. So that's where we're at right now, and I'm so excited. And now I've got to let this rest. When you do something like this, you have to let it rest so that the juices will congeal uh, and really kind of pull back into back into the dish. You know what I mean? If I cut into it right now, it's good. Juices are going to run everywhere. I kind of want that to kind of pull back into the meat, especially. I drained off most of the juices from the meat, and I forgot to mention as I was browning the meat, and then I drained the meat and the onion. What I did was I put in a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Again, probably I want to say about a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce to flavor, and then the recipe calls for a little butter in the wet mixture. That's the flour, egg, and I was trying to think of what else off the top of my head. So probably about 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 eggs, uh, a cup, give or take, of that flour. And the reason why I used a lower amount of flour is because I was adding a tablespoon and a half of um, um, baking powder, and that baking powder is going to help it rise. Baking powder, not baking soda. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to let this sit here, and in a moment, whatever, a few minutes, we'll do a tasting. We'll see. I've already tasted it. I know it's good, so, but for you guys. All right, so at this point, it's short and sweet. It looks really good. A lot of this cheese. At this point, and I cooked it following the directions. It is a little bit difficult for me to tell if the breading got all the way done or not. I think I have a feeling that it did. Yeah, this is just the cheese that's pulling apart. Okay, cool. At first, I was like, oh my God, is it undercooked? If it does come out undercooked, just put it back in the fridge just put it back in the oven for a couple of minutes. But I'm pretty sure, like any bread or biscuit, it will continue to cook as you take it out. But I'm looking at this. It's nice and bready. So let's taste it. Tastes like a cheeseburger. Tastes like a bacon cheeseburger. This is delicious. This is very delicious. So cheeseburger pie, and this was a recipe, the Pioneer Woman recipe that I saw. But I actually, I tripled the meat, and just about nearly doubled the wet ingredients. And I just kind of, when you're familiar with the kitchen, you kind of cook a little bit, by sight and by experience, and you use a recipe maybe as a guide, but not necessarily to its to the letter. So, God, look at this. This is great. Okay, so lemon light, bon appetit. Good night.